Okay, English language, paper 1, question 5, 40 marks, 45 minutes off the paper. Most important question that you're going to answer. We'll look at what top band writing looks like in this video. Okay, just remember for me, look to craft everything in your writing to ensure it's fully developed. And I also want you to remember, plan before you start writing. Okay, so we'll start with a bit on sentence mastery. So, you know that sentence construction is important. So you might pause the video, you might see if you can match the construction with the example. Okay, and I've colour coded your answers there. So remember for me, repeat reload is basically when we have two adjectives, we then have a colon, and then we repeat them again. So the waves were whispering and crawling, colon, whispering the song of the summer morning, and crawling towards the beach, carefully caressing the seaweed that had been left. So whispering and crawling are repeated, whispering and crawling. Last word, first word, straightforward. First sentence ends with heavy, second one starts with it. Double adjective snap. 1 and 2, comma, main clause. More. So the more the birds sang, the more the crickets chirped, and the more the breeze seemed to die away. So again, the idea of repetition. Semicolon in a compound sentence, then we can take out an and in a compound sentence if both sides make sense on their own and both link, and we can replace it with a semicolon. The morning had broken. Take out my and, replace it with the semicolon. The birdsong had erupted in the symphony. Then we have that compound complex sentence. Despite the chaos of the morning, the beach lay isolated from life, and it lived in a frozen time of calmness. Okay, so we know sentence mastery is important, but key things to remember in your writing, half the paper, so you've got to finish this question. Okay, spend 45 minutes on it. How well you vary your sentences is vital. Try and have a motif, extend the image that runs through if you can, or at absolute least make sure you're thinking about the way you use metaphor. And similarly, in personification, try and have elements of paragraph lengths. Okay, we might sometimes have single sentence paragraphs. Okay, so we talked about extended imagery is really important, and I think at the top end, I think it definitely is. Okay, I'm going to show you some examples. You might be able to see where you can see the extended imagery. Okay, there's my first one. You might pause the video. Okay then, so within this you can see that we've got a description of stormy weather, okay? And hopefully in this description of stormy weather you can see things like gulp, slumbering beast, violent roar, tearing, savage sheets, thunder cracked, and primal fury and howl. So within this I've described a storm and I've used this image of a monster that repeats throughout. Okay, again, you might pause the video, you might jot down a couple of bits of vocabulary. Okay, I've described inside a house here, so again, pause it, have a look at it, and then see if you can find the extended image. Okay, so in this, if we think about soft and bloom and petals and scent of lavender and floors like petals and roses, lilies, sprigs, all that kind of stuff, you'll see that you've got the image of flowers that run through there. Okay, so that's describing inside with a kind of calm tone. Here's my next one. Okay, so again, have a look at that. It's describing inside again. Can you see what the image is? Okay, so hopefully you've looked through this and you've seen melody, music drifting, dancing, whistled, soloist. You got the image of music that runs all the way through. Again, making it sound like a bit of beautiful setting. Then here's my final one. Describes a snowy day. Again, have a look. See if you can find. Alright, so if you look at this then, hopefully you've seen treasure and you've seen jewel and confetti and glittered and necklaces and where else did I put it? Scattered diamonds, okay? So you've got that extended image of jewels. So again, this is really kind of complex and you won't do it with the amount that I've done it in these paragraphs. Okay, you might just have a couple of examples of jewels, for example, in a paragraph. But hopefully if you go back through the video now, you might have vocabulary you can jot down because remember, you know, vocabulary is king and you might steal some. Okay, so let's have a look at some writing. They got top band. Okay, This was a story about that's entitled Abandoned. Okay, so Fen returned to his seat beneath the palm trees, and chirping birds had become acquainted with in his time beneath them. The chair itself was not the pinnacle of relaxation he'd been convinced of earlier in his life, its creaks loudly filling the vast emptiness surrounding him. However, it was comfortable and his only source of relief from the otherwise disappointing, wasteful, ruthless, hopeless day. Okay, so there's your opening. He'd been waiting for hours. Fen reached the depths of his pocket and retrieved his phone his grandchildren recently bought him in hopes of lightening the otherwise lonely life. Surely, he thought, surely she sensed something. But once again, as he desperately tried to find some kind of message from the mysterious woman whose presence had been promised to him, nothing. Fen was shocked. He had thought, with the wisdom he gained from his old age, that he would know who he could trust. It seemed so friendly at first, with an atmosphere of joy and eagerness following them wherever they went. Their connection had been instant. After talking to her for what seemed like hours, Fen had promised to meet with her again, and had ensured that he would be available at a moment's notice. His dreams fulfilled once more by merely being in her presence. He never dreamed of what happened, but upon his arrival, he was greeted with the same empty feeling that was present in him now. As he sat back in his seat and reminisced on the past few days, like his life was flashing before his eyes, Fen realised that there'd be no surprise arrival, no future hope, no enjoyment to feel, nothing. Fen drowned in nostalgia as he rested, resigned in his chair, a tower, which became enveloped by darkness at the disappearance of the sun, abandoned. So he's a short example, okay, of that. But what I want you to see, think about the imagery that it's got in there, chirping birds, vast emptiness, presence that have been promised to him. Look how it moves from big to small, okay? It starts with the character and then it moves to kind of looking at the phone, that should say, not photograph. It has an element of flashback, focusing on when they first met. So that's a structural choice, okay? So it starts in the present and it moves back in time, and we know that flashback's important. It has that repeated one sentence paragraph, nothing, so there's an element of withholding in this. And think about the end, though, which juxtaposes light and dark. Okay, so basically we've got a very simple story about somebody wanting to meet somebody and that person not being there. Okay, but you've got a bit of description there. Okay, so in your exam then you'll have a question like this, won't you? So remember, you get a choice of two questions, but in reality they both link together. So write a description based around this image or write a narrative based at sea. You might pause the video now, you might think, what would my plan look like? And here's mine. Okay, so here's my plan. So I'm going to write a story set at sea, but it's going to use that image. So I'm going to open with a description of the sun rising on a winter morning. Okay, the sun's a struggle. I'm going to have imagery of darkness breaking within that. And then I'm going to have a short one sentence paragraph. The day was dark. I'm then going to focus on a person entering the sea, and he's carrying a fishing net and he's walking towards a boat on the shoreline. And then I'm going to have a short sentence. Okay. We're then going to go more detail. We're going to zoom in on that person. He's clambering onto the boat. We're going to focus, look closely on his hands, the cold, the chap, the weather, and we're going to talk about how his movement is laboured. Okay, we're going to make sure we use metaphor in that. The day was frozen in time. And then I'm going to have a flashback. So in my flashback, I go back to the same place at a different time. So I'm going to go back to the beach in the summer. So at this point, this man is young, he's ambitious, he's happy, he's vibrant. Okay, so we're going back to when this main character was a different age. The boat that he clambers into is actually new now, and we're going to have an extended motif of jewels to describe the sea and the sand, okay, because that's going to represent that it's the summer of his life. I'm going to have a short paragraph again talking about days. The day went on forever. Okay, and then we're going to go back to the present. Okay, he's an older man again now, so the sea is choppy. He's going to push that boat out. It's going to end with an image of the man. Okay, and we're going to focus on his crossed fingers. That's going to be the last image that we see. Basically, he's hoping to catch something. All right. And then I'm going to end with my short sentence. What would the day bring? So if you have a look at that, I'm following that structure that we always talk about. I'm going from big to small. I'm focusing on my real description of character. And I'm not trying to kind of have an overly elaborate plot line. Okay? But I've definitely got a motif. And I've definitely got this repeated short sentences. And there's the opening that I've written in my paragraph. okay, in your kind of revision. You might have a go at your own, but hopefully that's useful thinking about writing.